Hello and welcome back to my Pokemon Horizons review series. Today we are reviewing episode 52 and I hope you enjoy. So this week we are still in the Paldean forests with Liko, Roy and Dot all trying to record some wild Pokemon footage to use as their school report. There was a funny gag in this episode where Liko and the others just kept missing out on the footage. Liko was just so useless with a camera, recording herself instead of the Pokemon in front of her. But after last week's episode, Roy was the focus this week, kind of. Following his journey to find this report, he was mainly fascinated with this Capsicid who played quite a big role in the episode, and it was cool to see it here and how it chews berries with its front tooth and produces these spicy chemicals. The other focus was Roy's Wattrel struggling a little bit. It was trying to fly higher to grab these berries, but it's still struggling with the high paced winds, which knocks it off balance. It was nice to spend a bit more time with Roy and his team, as I feel it's been a while since we've done this. However, I think this episode suffers a little bit as it just refused to focus on one thing. You had too much going on. It kept cutting back and forth between Roy's adventure and then Liko and Dot still trying to find their Pokemon footage. Meanwhile, you've got this Wattrel plotline that it doesn't really dive massively into until the end. And then halfway through you have the gym leader Rhyme show up, and this sets up this mysterious Pokemon wandering through the forest for the next episode. So there was just a lot going on, and I think this episode felt a bit all over the place for me. I kind of wish they just kept it solely on Roy and Wattrel, like last week did with Liko and Florigato and that relationship. But speaking of Rhyme's introduction, I really liked it. It was fitting to be at night, where we see her Houndstone just stood there like a gravestone, and it was a pretty creepy way to introduce it. I also like how she vibes with Roy as she is a rapper, so I can definitely see that one coming into play and then battling later on. And then she tells us about this one not of this world, which sets up the next episode. I feel her intro was more so just to set up future things, which is cool, but it did slightly feel out of place. But I think she's going to be a fun character for sure. Roy follows this Capsicid the next day down to this river and cliffside where he tries to rescue it as it's falling down. And he's trying to gain its trust while it constantly shoots him with these spicy attacks, which was hilarious. They get stuck on this cliff and Wattrel is trying to fly down to save them. After struggling all day with its flying, it's time for it to overcome its fears and help out. It firstly saves the Capsicid, but when Roy is in danger trying to climb up the cliff, he loses his footing and falls, and this forces Wattrel into action. It swoops down and evolves into Killer Wattrel, saving Roy from falling. A good evolution moment, not the greatest. I think the payoff is a bit unearned. There was no real training, no sense of achievement. I get it's flying to save Roy's life basically, which makes sense, but this is why I feel this episode was a bit all over the place. There wasn't enough with Wattrel to set up this evolution. They were focusing too much on other things, on Liko and Dot, on Rhyme, on Fuecoco, on this Capsicid. Wattrel was literally backseated in its own episode. I just think we needed more story in the middle to set this moment up, have Wattrel and Roy training like they did when he caught it, but it just kind of happened. I mean, I'm so happy that Roy has now finally had a team update, but it just needed more, and even in general, Roy's Wattrel hadn't had much development episodes in forever, so I think it was too early for it to evolve anyway. But it's cool that it happened. Killer Wattrel is a great Pokemon and there's a lot of potential here, but it was a bit mishandled for me. The episode ends with a really nice moment with Killer Wattrel taking Fuecoco up into the skies. You can see maybe it's more matured a little bit now, as they constantly used to pick fights, but we'll probably see a friendship form now. And then also a pretty cool tease about the next episode as we see a wild Annihilate setting up the next one. But overall for me, this episode was mixed. I don't think it was bad, but it could have just been so much better. It missed a lot of potential. It tried to have the big climactic payoff with not enough setup. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh with this one, but I feel just mixed on it. I thought it had a lot of promise and just didn't fulfill what I expected. There was other cool moments in this episode. Rhyme's introduction, the Liko gag of never getting the recordings was hilarious, but it should have just been about Roy. Roy should have got this episode like Liko got last week, so it's a bit of a shame. Overall, I'm going to give this episode a 5 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts. What is your rating out of 10? Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.